Okay. Welcome all. Welcome again, and a very good morning to you. Welcome to the 2017 BC Information Summit. My name is Mike Larsen. I am the president of the BC Freedom of Information and Privacy Association, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all here today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Stolo, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. This Information Summit is presented by BC FIPA and by the UBC School of Library, Archival, and Information Studies, and sponsored very generously by Van City, the Wilderness Committee, News Media Canada, the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner of BC, QPBC, BCGEU, Picotic, and the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And we thank all of our sponsors for their generous support. So I expect that most of you are familiar, at least in passing, with the BC Freedom of Information and Privacy Association, but by way of introduction, we're a nonpartisan, non-profit society established in 1991. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary as a society. And we work to promote and defend freedom of information and privacy rights in Canada. Our goal is to empower citizens by increasing their access to information and their control over their personal information. Our work involves public education, public assistance, research, and law reform efforts. I also want to acknowledge the hard work in organizing an event like the Information Summit. This was made possible through the diligent efforts of our program director, who I think everyone's met, Joyce Yan, and the incomparable organizing of our executive director, Vincent Gogolek. And thank you very much to them. And if you find this sort of work interesting, I certainly invite you all to ask us more about FIPA and perhaps become a member. So the theme of this year's Information Summit is Transparency Has the Wave Broken? It's an open question that I hope we'll explore throughout the proceedings today. The conference is actually a break in what is usual biennial tradition for us, having an Info Summit every 2 years. And this is in recognition of the fact that we're in a really important time right now in BC and in Canada in relation to information and privacy rights. The landscape is changing. There's a lot of different and new things in play, which makes this an exciting time and worthy of a gathering of this sort to consider where we are and where we're going. Provincially, of course, we've had recently a change of leadership at the provincial level, which represents an opportunity for us to address some long-standing deficits with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, to perhaps reestablish ourselves as a leader in Canada and in the field of information and privacy rights, and to consider some of the changing aspects of the information and privacy landscape in BC. Federally, of course, we have a long overdue legislation to amend the Access to Information Act. We also have a pressing need to defend our privacy rights in Canada, given changing technological landscape, the increasing role of both state and non-state actors in accessing, sharing, using personal information, and our increasingly transparent lives in general. And additionally, of course, we're currently in the midst of NAFTA renegotiations, and the NAFTA renegotiations have considerable impact on information and privacy rights, not least in the area of data localization, which is a topic that's been at debate at Info Summits in previous years. So it's safe to say that there's a lot of stuff in play right now. We also, of course, have had a tremendous amount of work on the information and privacy side of things at the committee level, provincially and federally, and our commissioners, also provincially and federally, have been producing, actually just this week, a number of very important reports, including annual reports and the report of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada coming out, I think, just today. So there's a lot going on, and this makes this a perfect opportunity for us to have a conversation. Just to close by way of editorializing for a second, these efforts that we've seen recently to reform our information and privacy laws, a lot of them reflect the fact that we have been trying and campaigning diligently, many organizations, many commissioners, to see meaningful reform in information and privacy law for decades. And it seems like some of this stuff's actually happening now. And so I'm hopeful and optimistic about that, and I hope you share that optimism. But I am a bit concerned that I don't want to be in a situation where in 2017 we're celebrating reforms that reflect recommendations from, let's say, 2000 or 1995. It's a step forward, but I think, this is a good time, I think, for us to consider what it would look like to be proactive, what it would look like to try and get ahead of changes in the information and privacy field, technologically, socially, and politically, and to consider an information and privacy rights landscape that would map onto what we can already predict in terms of the next 10, 15, 20 years in the future. I sincerely hope that the lag between legislation and practice and advocacy starts to close a little bit. And I think efforts like this and discussions like we'll have today are certainly part of that. So enough from me for now. You'll hear more from me later. I'd like to wish everyone a very successful and engaging Information Summit. I thank everyone for coming again. By way of a reminder, if anyone's interested in tweeting any of today's proceedings, we'd hope you could use, there's two hashtags, hashtag 2017 Info Summit and hashtag CDNFOI, that's CDNFOI. Thank also our panelists, our moderators, our speakers, and our volunteers for assisting us with the Info Summit. So it's now my privilege to introduce our first keynote speaker for the day, and this is someone who is, I think, well-positioned to comment on the themes of the Information Summit, especially where we are now and where we're going in the future. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Drew MacArthur, Acting BC Information and Privacy Commissioner. Thank you.